Asia, and to go over a few topics that probably covers the general side of blockchain investments and crypto investments. So to start off with, can everyone introduce themselves? Starting from John.
Hello, my name is John Park. My Korean name is Kwang Song, but I prefer John because nobody's able to pronounce it properly outside of Korea. I was one of the co-founders of Nonce Foundation, known in Korea as Nonce, and I came out of Nonce Foundation this February and created my own strategy consulting firm called Faraday, and I'm a managing partner there. And I work primarily with the crypto VCs outside of Korea. So, and thanks to Junie, I'm here probably to give insights that I've learned from my engagement with the crypto VCs outside of Korea for the Asian investment trend. Thank you.
Hello, Christy again. For those who were not in my previous speech, my name is Christy Hyungwon Choi. I'm the director at Finance Labs. While I've been talking about what investment means in crypto by myself and in the previous speech, I think the panel, I'll be talking more interactively around the Asian investment trend. Thank you.
Hello. Hi everyone, I'm Shikai and I'm the operations director from LongHash. So LongHash, we are a global blockchain incubator as well as VC, and we also act as a gateway to Asia. We have presence in Shanghai, Singapore, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and some in Europe as well. And we're supported by the Singapore government from JcCapital Wanxiang Group. I'm very much looking forward to support early stage blockchain projects. Before joining LongHash, I was with strategy consulting with McKinsey & Company, mainly working with multinationals as well as corporates in Southeast Asia with their digital strategy and analytics as well. So that's where I got exposed to the horizon of blockchain technology and the potential of it, and of course eager to jump into it.
네, 안녕하세요. 저 혼자 한국말로 말씀을 드리게 되는데요. 저는 JcCapital 코리아의 CEO 남공단이고요. 저희 JcCapital은 투자를 하는 JC 벤처라고 하는 잠을 가지고 있고, 또 투자 유치나 리스팅을 도와드리는 컨설팅 펌을 가지고 있고, 지금 중국에서는 체인 뉴스라고 하는 미디어도 투자해서 투자, 컨설팅, 미디어 종합적으로 관리하고 있는 종합 회사이고요. 현재는 상하이를 베이스로 베이징, 서울, 그리고 실리콘밸리에 각각 사무소를 가지고 있습니다. 저는 이 업계에 들어오기 전에는 중국에서 10년 이상 생활을 하면서 한중 양국 시장의 시너지 밸류에 대해서 다양한 고민을 했었고, 주로 컨텐츠 업계에서 IP를 양쪽 국가에서 왔다 갔다 하는 일을 했는데, 그런 과정에서 있다 보니까 블록체인이 굉장히 중요한 지적재산권의 보호라든가 향후에 어떤 중요한 의미를 가지고 있다고 생각해서 계속 관심을 가지다가 작년, 좀 늦게 들어왔습니다. 작년에 좋은 기회가 있어서 이 업계에 입문하고 지금까지 일하고 있습니다. 감사합니다.
Okay, so thank you for your introductions. Let's start with how the market is right now. So after the bull run in 2017, and then shortly ended early 2018, we're going through a massive tunnel, more than a year and a half, close to 2 years of a crypto winter. Basically, the Bitcoin dominance is like usually around 70% or below that, just below that. So this, and with the winter, a lot of the sentiment has been shifting to, okay, what's the use of blockchain? What's the use of all these cryptos? So a lot of new theses have been coming in during the winter. So what are you seeing right now in the market? What are the changes that have been happening? And where do you think the market's shifting to? John, maybe you could start.
I think Shikai or Christy would be more apt person to start off this conversation,
Sure.
and I would add a little later.
Sure. As Junie kind of mentioned earlier, when we're talking about market in terms of the secondary market, which is trading crypto in exchanges or in P2P platforms, the transaction volume has gone down a lot recently. I think it has gone down more than 20-30% compared to a quarter ago or so, because the crypto market was fairly okay-ish during the spring and the summertime, and then has significantly gone down after July or August. So there is not much, new things going on, to be honest. If we're talking about the fall and in terms of like how October has been going, but I think if we're talking about 2019, of course, Bitcoin dominance has gone up, which means that there are less and less opportunity for altcoins or other new projects to really create hypes or get a lot of interest from retail and secondary or private investors out there. In terms of the investment trends from the private sector or the private market side, there has been a distinct trend in that a lot of different projects are looking into more decentralized application, including games, and of course a lot of decentralized finance products coming out. I think this is, and also one more trend to note is that there are a lot of Fortune 500 companies that are getting into crypto, especially in the US after Facebook Libra. I think those are some of the trends that I've been seeing very recently. One more thing, because not just because we're talking about Asian investment trend in this session, there has been more and more activity happening in Asia compared to US is what I'm seeing. I think the general quality of the project coming out of Asia has gone up a lot in the previous quarter or so. Feel free to refute if you guys don't agree, but that's my observation so far.
Sure. Actually, I agree, and I like to look at a few different directions, right? So from the startup or the ecosystem perspective, from more of the regulation perspective, and also from the institutions or the enterprise perspective as well. So fully agree from the startup perspective. We've looked at the token prices. As you know, the sentiment is quite low right now, and most of the projects that we are working with, incubating and investing, aren't really issuing tokens, so people are looking at more equity at the moment. And in fact, I would say that it's probably a more interesting time to invest than before, because in the bear market, I mean, that's where you have the opportunity to act in reverse or differently from how everybody is trying to act, right? This is the time where we can find good projects, because the barrier to entry is much higher when the sentiment is low. Only when they see real use cases or real promise, that's when they'll dedicate themselves to building on it. And also valuations can be much more attractive as well in this market. So on the startup side, we do see high quality projects coming in, or still at least coming into our network, and very happy to support them. On the regulation side, it is true that we also see a lot of activity, especially coming from Singapore. I see a lot of projects coming through that area because of the friendly regulation. I see increasingly people realizing that regulations, for example, in the US being very complicated, and the government, the SEC, going after some of these high-profile projects. So we start to see the flow towards more crypto-friendly jurisdictions. And then thirdly, I think also most interesting is the institutions, even though right now the news and the public hype has died down, but we're getting more than ever invitations to speak privately to multinationals, to companies, to just explain to them what is blockchain and how could it potentially disrupt them in the next 3 to 5 years. So we're not talking about like next 10 years of disruption. We're talking about, hey, these guys are already existing. What could happen, or what should we build in response to what the market has been doing? So I would say overall, even though on the surface level, sentiment is pretty down, but under the surface, there's a lot of interesting activity going on, and still a lot of great talent and energy being put into the industry.
Cool. I you want to add?
저는 일단 앞에서 두 분이 거의 대부분의 말씀을 다 해주셔서 할 말은 많이는 없는데요. 제가 지금 느끼기에 추가로 말씀드릴 부분은 한국 시장에 대한 좀 변화의 움직임에 대해서 좀 말씀드리고 싶어요. 예를 들어서 일단은 규제 이슈가 점점 정리가 되고 있는 것 같고 조금 제가 느끼는 시그널은 일단 예를 들어서 뭐 거래소부터 뭔가 규제화가 될 것 같다는 움직임에 있어서 분명히 그런 거래소를 뭔가 법제화시키고 규제화시키는 데 있어서 필요한 사람들이 이 업계에서 굉장히 중요한 포지션을 잡고 계시고 또 그런 거를 이미 시그널을 느끼고 있는 사람들은 과거에는 뭔가 굉장히 경쟁적인 위치에 있었다가 지금은 업계에 있는 사람들이 되게 이제 모여서 조금 더 뭐랄까요 시너지 밸류를 내려고 되게 전략을 많이 고민하고 서로 공유하고 함께 앞으로 나아가려는 그런 움직임을 보이고 있는 것 같습니다.
Do you have any cases of co-working in South Korea that you could explain? Why you see this?
당장 제가 여기서 이 자리에서 굉장히 퍼블릭한 어떤 장소에서 그런 걸 말씀드리기는 좀 쉽지 않지만 제가 어나운스할 수 있는 어나운스된 내용만을 말씀드린다면 예를 들어서 한국 블록체인 협회를 보시면 지금 현재 협회 회장이 되신 분이 원래 아시겠지만 문재인 대통령의 금융 최고 위치에 있는 자문위원이셨죠. 그리고 그분이 원래 금융감독원 출신이세요. 근데 감독원에서 부원장을 하셨는데 은행을 감독하시던 분입니다. 그래서 결국에 은행을 감독하시던 분이 한국 블록체인 협회의 2대 회장이 되셨어요. 그 전에는 1대는 진대지 장관님이셨죠. 그러면은 그분이 분명히 은행과 가장 밀접한 관계에 있는 거래소라든지 뭐 디파이 쪽에 있는 어떤 부분들을 혁신적으로 개혁하기 위해서 이 업계에 들어오셨다고 저는 믿고 있고 또 제가 보기에는 협회 내부에서도 지금 뭐 인사도 많이 조정이 되고 실제로 이 업계에서 활발하게 움직이고 있는 플레이어들이 단순히 기존 전통업계에 있었던 협회로서 약간 이익수단으로서가 아니라 진짜 이 업계를 좀 바꾸려고 하는 움직임이 있었고요. 또 최근에 저희가 아직은 인가를 받지 못했지만 한국에는 협동조합이라는 형태의 중소기업 중앙회에서 공식적으로 인정하는 산업 섹터의 어떤 모임 조직이 있습니다. 지금 현재 한국 블록체인 사업협동조합이라는 조직이 총 55개의 법인이 모여서 인가 신청을 하고 있죠. 이런 움직임들이 저는 굉장히 긍정적인 시그널이라고 생각합니다.
Can I add a few comments to that?
Sure.
Including Christy.
Yeah.
Shikai.
Go ahead.
I think for trends that we're seeing in terms of investment, I would say the dominance over for BTC in the market actually shows that a lot of the crypto investors sees BTC as like a hedge product against the altcoins they used to buy during the bull run. One thing that I'm seeing, which is really particular to me, is that as Christy mentioned and Shikai mentioned, there are a lot of the projects coming out of Asia or around the world that will be based on altcoins, but still people are investing more in BTC, which means that a lot of the activities that are happening are not getting that much support as before. So I believe that people's mindset that they have that BTC could act as a hedge could also undermine the more vibrant activities in the for the whole ecosystem. So it's half and half for me. Bitcoin being accepted as a hedge product and also an alternative asset, even to the outside of the crypto ecosystem, is a good sign. But at the same time, it could also work against a lot of the people who are working outside of the BTC ecosystem, but were working in the Ethereum ecosystem or Cosmos, Tendermint ecosystem as well. So, it's always a mixed view. And regarding a lot of the inclusive behaviors of Korean blockchain startups or blockchain players, I was always expecting more to happen. I know there are a lot of the institutional-ish movements like Johab or associations being made, but what voices are we actually making outside of that association to the government? What voices are we making out as an ecosystem players who have been around for 1 year or 2 years? or like even starting from like 2014, like in Korea at least, what voices are we actually delivering to the Korean public? That's the question that I still have in my mind. And also I was talking with Junie about that in Tokyo as well, and I myself was, was feeling pretty embarrassed about the fact that I was just too focused on making a living. I wasn't making my voice out or my opinions out to be resonated among the public, or even trying more to educate, or I'd say educate is a stronger word, but I would say letting people know more about the ecosystem, and also like about like the whole like vision that we share is still lacking. And I think we need more inclusive behaviors among us, and also like making sure that our voices and our visions gets resonated with the outside of crypto, so that the face-to-face interface between crypto world and the outside of crypto world should be enlarged. That's what I believe.
Let me summarize a bit based on what you said, because so I think what Namdan Depot said is kind of where like these activities are now sprouting out. So I'm sure he's hopeful. I'm hopeful as well that a voice or a lot of voices will come out from that. So I think that's something that's going to happen in the near or near future, hopefully. Regarding the Bitcoin sentiment of the market, I think it's funny where it's not really undermining the market itself, the altcoin markets, but because there's a massive dominance on Bitcoin, and when everyone sees that Bitcoin prices are, or they have a feeling that it's going to go up, like everyone else as an investor is looking into Bitcoin more than all the altcoins, right? So that's the kind of narration you're putting in. Okay, so we're talking, everyone has kind of summarized about how the market is right now. Like I think regarding a few key points in the market, like recently or in the last 3 to 6 months, DeFi has been coming out a lot. Blockchain games have been coming out a lot, and this is all related to, in some way, of defining how the blockchain can be valuable. What's your thoughts on that? If anyone who wants to say first, please raise your hand. I think that's the best way. Yeah, rounding someone.
I'll start off.
Ladies first.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about different mass adoptions. I think we also had a panel around it just before. But people are talking about decentralized finance. People are talking about blockchain gaming. I think it's an apparent two big trends that we see after the protocol wars that we've seen, like late last year or early this year. A lot of new projects are talking about blockchain gaming and DeFi. It's also related to how there has been a lot of these protocols or layer 2 solutions have come out last year and early this year. And because a lot of new blockchains are coming out, and they will be launching their mainnet over end of this year or early 2020, they're basically thinking about what are the use cases. What to do with the scalability blockchain has been the main discussion. Now that we have, because people have been building these new public blockchains after mentioning how Ethereum wasn't scalable enough, and then people have built the scalability blockchains, now what we're going to do with it. And obviously we're talking about a few hundred DAUs, where there are not many people who are really on blockchain gaming. There are not many people who are interacting and using the DeFi products outside of the people who are in this room, or not even the people in this room, or have actually opened a CDP in MakerDAO, which comprises of 80 or 85% of the entire decentralized finance network. It's the reality that we're talking about right now. What the potential of blockchain and crypto would be, I think I kind of mentioned it in my previous speech, so I don't want to echo it again, but it really will be about what the value proposition of crypto and blockchain can bring, other than the existing products. It won't be a copycat of the versions that we've seen and that already works. so well in the world that we're living that will drive mass adoptions or will be the next new trend in blockchain, I believe, because we're already good with KakaoPay. We're already good with TOS in Korea right now. I don't personally feel any difficulties other than there are a lot of commission that happens when I'm sending money to my sister in the US. Thus, and people talk about how decentralization is not helping so much for these products that people are building. But when decentralization is a hurdle, it's a barrier for mass adoption, then that product won't pick up, is my view. It has to be a product that has to be decentralized to work, will be the products that need blockchain and crypto. So that is kind of my 2 cents around the question.
I second to Christy in a way that she kind of framed that DeFi and crypto gaming are just kind of like a keywords and like trend words as well. But the core problem, the core essence of it is, so what we're gonna drive the whole mass adoption, or so-called earlier this year, a lot of people were talking about killer apps, right? And we will probably going to see, as Kristen mentioned, later this year and next year, we're going to see a lot of the huge names coming out, releasing their mainnets as well, like Polkadot, Kadena, and all these other, all these protocol war is going to take place again. And funny thing about that is people are now talking about crypto, gaming, and DeFi, but it's going to be again a scalability issue, which is going to dominate the debates and discussions probably later this year and early next year too. When I come to think of it, it's more I guess for mass adoption to actually take place, it is important to get the value proposition right and how to define the problems. What kind of problems are you going to solve as a decentralized application or a decentralized protocol? But at the same time, I think we need to have an infrastructure that could actually support, even when we have an application that will be able to define the trouble or the problem and trying to fix it. If the infrastructure itself cannot support the decentralized governance or decentralized structure, then we're in trouble. So I would say we need to actually take more lessons from, let's say, how the cloud computing system actually evolved, how the telecommunications evolved as well, how CDMA and TDMA have been evolved so that we can actually use our cell phones without any worries that we're not going to be synced to each other, or when we're using AWS or web scale, all these ideas about how you can select your configuration according to your services should be applied in the same way to the Web 3.0 period that we all are talking about in the crypto scene as well. I think there are a lot of products and projects who are working on that, crypto, Web 3.0, infrastructure, and how we can actually sustain the structure as well. So I guess while we will be overwhelmed and we'll be flooded by all those keywords like DeFi, crypto gaming, and scalability, but at the same time, I think it'll be very important for us to actually look into what kind of efforts are actually going on under the layer of Web 3.0. Is the infrastructure getting ready? What other projects who are working on those infrastructure level? It's going to be is actually going to be the essence that's going to lead to mass adoption.
Fully agree with what you guys are saying. I'd like to come and frame it from a slightly different angle as well. So the way I see it, yeah, for sure, these are buzzwords. And when buzzwords come, they generate hype. A lot of people, start to make these similar projects without thinking of the real pain points. So, but at the same time, experimentation is at the heart of an innovative community, right? So, looking at use cases that you can already do right now, I think the community has found that having decentralized finance that encourages the crypto community, the existing community, to then trade or being able to use these products can generate traction, and that's why it has taken off. So in that sense, I think it makes sense for it to exist, and I can see why it has risen in the near past, right, in the current state. That being said, it's not enough to be limited to this community. DeFi and like blockchain gaming or crypto gaming needs to compare itself to traditional finance, right? How do we compare to all the financial products out there? How do we compare to all the other games out there? And what's something different that we're providing? And that's why I actually like DeFi, because I think it's moving the community towards a direction which is more blockchain native. Because DeFi fundamentally is born and lives on the blockchain, even though right now most of us access it manually as if we would access a financial product from a bank or investment, whatever firm that you use. In the future, it's building this kind of a framework or components that when one day we have the full stack, which is on blockchain, and you have dApps, let's say, or even DAO, who need to do some of these token conversions, or who need to automatically buy computing power or storage space or share some data and need to convert these tokens or want to put their own native tokens as collateral. These DeFi protocols can serve as a foundation for that future that we're trying to build towards. So yeah, okay, some traction right now, which I can see makes sense. We need to make sure it's competitive compared to traditional products, and I can see as an important component for the future that we're building.
Cool. Do you want to add anything to that?
저는 좀 다른 각도에서 말씀드리고 싶은데요. 지금 이런 형태의 블록체인 행사들에 와 계시는 일반 유저들한테 한번 이렇게 오늘 어떠셨어요? 여쭤보면 너무 어려웠어요. 잘 모르겠어요. 이게 대부분의 대답이에요. 근데 저는 항상 답은 현장에 있다고 생각하고요. 시장에서 어떤 기술이든 상품이든 성공을 할 수 있으려면 결국에 니즈를 봐야 돼요. 그런 의미에서 지금 현재 우리 블록체인 업계에 있는 여러 가지 응용들 중에서 블록체인 게임은 쉽고 재밌게 사람들이 이쪽으로 들어올 수 있게끔 만든다는 의미에서는 굉장히 의미가 있고, 또 아까 이 바로 전 세션의 패널 디스커션에서 바로 사실 우리가 메서드 옵션에 대해서 이미 얘기를 나눴고, 거기에서의 결론은 저는 되게 공감을 하는 부분이었는데, 하나는 과연 블록체인 업계에서 가치 있는 사용처를 만들어낼 것인가, 그리고 이 사용처를 만들어내는 사람들이 과연 그러니까 이 업계에 계신 크립토 유저들이나 종사자들 이외의 사람들에게 신뢰성을 줄 수 있을 것인가. 결국에 저는 모든 문제는 커먼 센스로 생각해야 가장 쉽다고 생각해요. 네. 근데 아직 블록체인 업계는 너무 우리끼리 너무 어려운 얘기를 하고 있는 게 아닌가. 조금 더 바깥 세상에 목소리에 귀를 기울여야 할 필요가 있지 않은가라는 생각입니다. 네, 그런 의미에서 블록체인 게임 되게 중요한 포인트인 것 같아요.
I want to add to that. So, do you think that blockchain games are exposed to, let's say, the majority of the audience here? Because like games itself is, it touches the younger generation, probably to the max of 40 based in Korea. Like 80%, 90% of the users of any games is probably younger than 40, unless it's Sudoku and Match 3 games, right? So, like I think it's interesting that it's also an educational platform for blockchain, but do you think that kind of curtails the whole audience here? Or what's your thoughts on that?
사실 지금 현재로서는 뭐 여러 가지 확장성 문제들 때문에 블록체인 게임 자체가 굉장히 복잡하게 나오기는 힘들잖아요. 결국에는 뭐 레이어 2나 뭐 이런 걸 활용해서 뭐 세미 블록인 게임 정도가 나와야 있는 복잡한 게임이 되는 건데, 저는 뭐 이렇게 가끔 이렇게 그 대중교통을 이용해 보면 뭐 우리가 통계 수치적으로 잡히는 게임의 유저가 사실 뭐 40대 이하가 더 많고 하긴 하지만, 많은 사람들은 이미 게임이라는 장르 자체를 우리가 뭐 그냥 버스에서 혹은 전철에서 앉아서 남는 시간에 킬링타임을 하기 위해서 소비하는 어떤 시간을 소비하는 콘텐츠로 생각하고 있기 때문에, 저는 충분히 현재 나와 있는, 예를 들어서 오늘 발표하신 슈퍼트리라던가 이런 것들이 아직은 굉장히 복잡하지 않고 아주 큰 재미를 주지 못하지만 괜찮은 게임들이라고 생각하고요. 한국에서는 이미 뭐 거래소들도 다 이미 게임 업계에서 오신 분들이 이제 되게 리드를 하고 계신데, 이미 전통 게임 업계에서 유명한 이제 개발자들이나 기획자들이 NFT를 충분히 활용할 수 있는 어떤 게임들을 이미 개발해 나오고 계시고, 네, 지금 오늘 발표는 안 하셨지만 그런 분들이 나오고 있기 때문에 저는 뭐 멀지 않은 미래에 우리가 원하는 어떤 그런 아웃풋들이 나와서 이제 뭐 진입 장벽도 낮추고 조금 더 퍼블릭하게 매스 어덕션을 할 수 있지 않을까라는 생각을 하고 있습니다.
So I think a really good point is that like it's usually the simple things that bring in mass user adoption, and I think this is related to how valuations of projects are linked to the projects they're actually building. Because if you're, let's say, $100 million valuation project, and you're building a very simple snake game for blockchain, it kind of doesn't justify, so it makes it difficult for a lot of these teams and companies to build something that's simple and touching the general users. So I kind of want to move over to valuations as well. Like, what's your thoughts on like projects valuations? Because like recently we've been seeing Polkadot, $1.2 billion. There's a few Korean projects that are saying that they're going to be a $1 billion project. There's a lot of these mainnets that are, you know, around there. There's also, there's a lot of this polarization. You're either $1 billion to a $500 million plus project building mainnets, or, you know, like for a lot of the investment side, I think like a $30 to $40 million valuation is like a sweet spot as well, where it's not too much, but it's enough to build something that they want to build. So I really would like to hear what your thoughts are on valuations.
I can start with this one because you mentioned the Polkadot valuation. And yeah, and because we also invested in Polkadot since the very beginning, so definitely keen to share some insights on that. So the way I see it is, there's no one sweet spot for valuation per se, right? Because each project is slightly different. I would say that there is a kind of different tiers of valuation depending on the potential of the project that you are building. So in blockchain, I think some of you may be familiar with the FAT protocol thesis as well, whereby the foundational technologies tend to have more potential in the future and therefore tend to capture more value in the ecosystem right now. And I think it is reflected in the blockchain ecosystem, where we see the layer 1 projects or even the layer 2 projects, or those who are building a generalized protocol instead of a specific application, being able to attract more funds and a higher valuation. I think Polkadot is an example of that. I think we see a very strong team coming from, of course, Gavin himself, from the early days building Ethereum. We see them gathering a lot of good developers who are interested in what you're building, and a very clear vision of how they could connect the blockchain ecosystem together, and providing very easy to use tools using Substrate for anyone to build those blockchains. So I think it comes down to how big is the vision or the potential of the project that you're building, and how likely you are to get there. Right? So if it's worth, let's say, 100 billion or a trillion, and then what is a percentage probability that you can make it there? And that kind of informs the valuation of that project. So for an application which is smaller, then, well, clearly the valuation should be much lower, or depending on how quickly they expect to capture all this adoption. I do agree, however, that for most application-based projects, there has been a tendency towards overvaluation in this industry, and I'm glad to see that in this bear market or crypto winter, we're starting to see people more come to their senses when they have to justify this valuation with their revenues, with their users, with their traction, and especially when they speak to traditional investors, which we introduce a lot of these projects to in Singapore.
Yeah, I think there will be always like a bifurcating views if like any one of us are asked about the valuation side. And I think Christy, like during her last presentation, the last session, actually like kind of pointed out well about like in a positive way. If someone is positive on the side, I think they could actually refer to one of her slides that says, you know, there is so much room to unlock the potential. So that will be the people or the crowd who are saying, there's so much to unlock, you know, the potential to be unlocked, so that like if you think about it, like even the traditional VCs, when they're investing in, although they see a lot of the things, they take into account a lot of stuff like burn rate, churn rate, like, you know, like what kind of visions do they have, like the team members, but at the same time they're like, you know, when everything they said, when every vision is completed by what the startup is saying, and they take that into account when they're valuing what the team's worth or what the product's worth is. It probably is the same for blockchain as well, but like another part of the crowd will say, well, like if you see the daily active users, DAUs, monthly active users, like, you know, they're basically nobody who are using. And even among, like I think Chrissy kind of pointed out well, like, oh, you work in crypto, but do you know what CDP is? But many people will be like, oh, what is that? And when they're answered back, oh, MakerDAO, they're like, oh, I know MakerDAO, right? So I guess we still have a long way to go if you see from that perspective as well. So I guess there is always going to be a bifurcating conflict, but I think like only, I guess I'm more of an infrastructure guy, so like I think a lot of the valuation for infrastructure companies or infrastructure startups are being undervalued at the moment, because people are like always, because they always follow, I mean retail investors always tend to follow the trendy words, and they want to go for what's going to be the killer apps, what's going to be the next investment I should make. But like when you come to think of it, like when you step back and think of it, like it makes more sense that like when everything is realized, like it makes more sense for you to actually like unlock the potential of investing into those infrastructure companies. So I'll say, like, you know, there are bifurcating views, and because of that, I think some of the startups are not being valued properly. But I guess, you know, still I'm more on the hopeful side and positive side, saying there will be a lot of potential to unlock. So I'll be saying it could justify from that point of view on the 1.2 billions, but like we'll see how it goes when it goes to the market, right?
From an investor's perspective, valuations are never cheap, right? Valuations are never cheap. I think crypto in general and blockchain industry need to learn from what happened to WeWork very much. Although valuation by its nature is kind of random, there are a lot of different valuation methodologies to really find the right valuation, and it's oftentimes defined by the private investors before it gets public. And which is exactly the reason why private investors need to be responsible for the valuation that they have measured and give to the project's matters, because once it goes public, that kind of the private market valuation kind of serves as the standard for how much multiples it may create in the public market, where retails will, in most of the times, will follow the brands and the funds that have invested and so on, with limited information compared to the private investors and the crypto funds. Right now, there are a lot of this billion-dollar, valued projects, and there are a couple $100 million valuation projects. When I first got into crypto as an investor, when I first joined Binance Labs, I was shocked by the fact how all these funds that I admired so much are willingly put in the checks in a few $100 million valuation. And of course, as an investor, I was also FOMO'd, because A16Z invested, maybe there's something. Maybe because Sequoia invested, maybe there is something. Because they're coming from traditional venture fund, they understand how valuation works in the traditional world. I kind of assumed, okay, maybe though the tractions and the numbers are not there, maybe because of the value that may be created in the future, maybe this is justified. The private investors are investing in that valuation because there is still an upside, depending on which round that you come in and depending on the valuation of that particular round. There are certain multiples that you can create in the public market. However, for retail investors, there's no such thing. Once the valuation is set by the private investors, it's very difficult for the projects to go down run to match the expectation. of the volatile market situation as well. There were a lot of different projects who have raised at several, tens of millions of dollars, 100 million valuation, and then because the crypto winter was hit, they had to go for lower valuation. And of course, the private investors were very, very mad at them. At the same time, when they were listed on an exchange, the market cap also fall. So the retail investors were also mad at them. So it's creating sort of like a vicious cycle if the projects, because of their, because of the team, because they have been working on this distributed technology for the 10 years, and because these projects have been backed by ABC fund, if the project is just valued at a couple $100 million, it simply is not going to work so much. I think the reason why we're actually experiencing crypto winter right now and the Bitcoin dominance is so high is also because of the disappointment that retail and the private investor have experienced after seeing how, at the end of the day, after building these scalability blockchains, there's no use case, and it's just hard to continuously create the hype to justify that valuation, because the valuation that you see in crypto, if you convert it or if you compare it, how many unicorn startups that are valued at 1 billion are there in Korea? Those that have that certain valuation are ones that have millions of users and have millions of ARRs. In crypto, the pitches from the projects are that, hey, I have this partnership. Hey, I have this POC. I don't have a revenue right now, but hey, look at this project that's raised that certain valuation. And that's when the conversation kind of becomes, awkward. Like,
I'd like to add to that
yeah.
after this.
So yeah, and also there is certain type of, I think there is misconception by several funds or from the retail market who doesn't really see like which funds comes in which valuation, that if you have good brands or good portfolios that are kind of in the top 10, 20 list, the fund is actually a good fund and is a very well-performing fund. The truth is, a good investment is a mix of at which valuation, how much money that you wrote, the check size as well. So I think that those kind of misconceptions are kind of building in, and it's kind of helping projects to raise that ridiculous valuation.
Why don't we give Dan a comment and then if we have time.
네, 다시 질문의 본질로 돌아와서 폴카돗이나 코스모스 같은 굉장히 하이 밸류에이션을 갖고 있는 프로젝트들이 그 정도의 가치를 갖고 있는 거냐, 저는 그렇다고 생각해요. 이유는 방금 앞에서 말씀하신 것처럼 전통 투자의 관점에서의 가치 평가의 방법, 이쪽에서 가치 평가의 방법을 다 말씀하셨지만 블록체인에서는 되게 중요한 게 컨센서스라고 생각합니다. 그 컨셉에 대해서, 그 철학에 대해서 얼마나 많은 사람이 공감하고 동의하고 같이 할 준비가 되어 있느냐. 재미있는 예를 말씀드리면 예전에는 굉장히 사실 지금도 유명하신 분인데 우지안이라는 분이시잖아요. 그분이 대학 전공이 뭔지 아세요? 철학입니다. 북경대학교 1년 선배 철학과를 나오셨는데 실제로도 지금 중국의 비트코인 고래들 중에 철학과 출신이 많아요. 그건 뭐냐면 그만큼 먼저 이 블록체인이 가진, 완벽하게 탈중앙화는 될 수 없겠지만 중국이 가졌던 어떤 사회주의 혁명에서의 어떤 그런 비슷한 컨셉을 갖고 있는 이 기술에 대해서 사람들이 그만큼 컨센서스를 가지고 이 네트워크에 참여를 했다는 거죠. 그러니까 이 네트워크가 다양성이 많냐 틀리냐는 사실 저는 차치해야 된다고 생각해요. 일단 사람들한테 공감을 이끌어낼 수 있냐 없냐가 되게 중요한 포인트인 것 같고, 그런 의미에서 폴카돗이나 코스모스는 충분히 어필을 했고 공감을 이끌어낸다. 그래서 앞으로 만약에 여기서 조금 더 실사용 사례가 나오고 이러면 저는 훨씬 더 높은 밸류로 갈 거라고 생각해요. 아까 존방님께서 말씀해 주셨지만 인프라스트럭처와 미드웨어 프로토콜, 그다음에 응용, 사실은 다 서로 다른 레이어를 갖고 있고 서로 다른 역할을 해주기 때문에 전 세계에서 투자 제일 크게 하시는 분이 어딘가요? 인프라스트럭처 투자입니다. 네, 굉장히 그냥 커먼 센스죠 이것도. 네, 마찬가지라고 생각해요. 저는 절대로 고평가되어 있지 않다고 생각하고 그게 뭐 양극화라고 생각하지 않고 그리고 이 블록체인 업계에서의 밸류에이션이라는 거는 되게 중요한 부분이 컨센서스에 있는 것 같다라는 걸로 결론을 짓고 싶습니다.
Shika, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just really quickly, I think talking about some of these points that you guys have raised about having adoption to justify the valuation, I like to bring in a different perspective, which is strategic value, is what Dan was talking about as well. If we look at some of the deep tech or infrastructure projects in the traditional space, so something like OpenAI, backed by Sam Altman from Y Combinator and Elon Musk, they raised $1 billion from Microsoft. Or even magically raising hundreds of millions from Google and Alibaba. They have barely any or like almost no users. Well, why are these people so willing to pour in so much capital? It's because like they do see that if it works, it's going to have so much potential to transform their industry or transform their company. So Microsoft is making a bet on it, Google's making a bet on these things. So in the crypto space, people who have come in early into Bitcoin, into Ethereum, now almost have a responsibility or have a desire to make these strategic investments into those projects that can make the whole ecosystem become like a scalable, become like adoptable by a user experience and so on. So that's a different perspective that investors can take to justify these valuations. The stories that the founders can tell to convince investors whether or not they can achieve that objective is totally subjective. But this strategic value, and like Dan said, the consensus and agreement on the direction that we want to build towards is something that's really valuable, and I think it's a core reason why there's so much energy and capital behind these infrastructure projects today.
Thank you. So we've run out of time, but I think we've kind of covered how the market has been moving. Some key words in the market right now, including DeFi and blockchain gaming, and tapped into valuation. I wish we had more time, but I think I'll wrap the panel up here. Thank you for everyone who gave a good speech today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.